Hey folks, hope you're all doing well. Let's take a look at this week's astrological report for March 31st through April 6th of 2026. This week, we don't have a ton of major aspects in the sky, but we do have some important things happening, including the main event, which is the Libra Full Moon. That's exact by tomorrow on April 1 at 12 degrees. I'll get into the meaning of that, but it is the peak emotional energy of the lunar cycle. And it has a lot to say about relationships this week. I think the main theme this week is about negotiations, relationships, trying to find balance and harmony in different ways. And I think it's also about money and resources with this change of Venus from its debilitation to its home sign of Taurus, where it's very strong. However, even though markets are responding nicely to this Venus now in Taurus, I don't think it's quite stable just yet, because this week Venus also has to get past a square with Pluto. In fact, when Venus is making that square exact on Friday, April 3, the moon will also be in Scorpio opposing Venus and squaring Pluto. So there's going to be a big T-square with this Venus. And I think that'll be the turning point. It will be a little bit of an issue. I'll be talking about that both for money, resources, values, and again, relationships and partnerships and what this is talking about. But once that Venus gets past that square, then Venus is in alignment with the nodes of fate exact by next Monday on April 6th. Venus sextile the north node of destiny, trine the south node, and then we'll be building by almost mid-April to a sextile with Jupiter. So I do think that it's a time to be thinking about the long term when, if you're an investor or you are looking at these money, financial dynamics. That's the turning point, I think. That's what I'm looking at personally, is right now probably that mid-April time frame. So this week we're still not quite stable with Venus just yet, but we're in that process, and it's still a great improvement from where it's been. All right, so with that, the Venus aspects, and then we also have Mercury now, Mercury moving forward, building up that momentum, and we'll come into a final third pass trine with Jupiter. That's exact on Friday as well, April 3. So that is a good positive connection to hope and news and information. I'll be talking about that again and who's most affected by that. And then the other aspect for the week is going to be the Sun making a square to Jupiter on Sunday, April 5, from Aries to Cancer. And they're both very strong. The Sun is exalted and Jupiter is exalted. So two exalted planets squaring each other. I'll be talking about that. So these are the main aspects for the week. Again, there's not a ton of things going on, mostly lunar aspects, but everything is culminating this week. So a lot of awareness is coming out, plus that Mercury now direct moving forward. We do have all planets direct at this moment. Now, Mercury's still in a little bit of a challenging position, so I think once Mercury gets to Aries, things are going to really start to speed up and move forward more and more, especially when Mars gets there as well. But for now, we're building up that momentum forward. So everything will be direct until May. I believe the second week of May, Pluto goes retrograde. But that'll be the only retrograde until late June. The next one will be when Mercury goes retrograde in Cancer, again, late June. So we have several months here of this building up of momentum direct, and a lot of forward progress is available for us, the world, moving forward. We still have Uranus at 28 degrees. It'll be reaching the last critical degree. Also, for one more month, we have this Uranus in Taurus until the end of April, and it will ingress Gemini and will fully be in this new era with all the outer planets in their new positions moving forward. All right, so check the description if you want the exact times for all these aspects throughout the week and timestamps to follow along. So looking at the chart, the moon will be waxing through the rest of Virgo today, ingressing Libra for the next 2.5 days, becoming full there in Libra, and then waning through the signs of Scorpio and Sagittarius this week. The The moon will be debilitated in Scorpio when it's making that big T-square to Venus and Pluto. So that will be a little bit of a challenge there, perhaps on Friday into the weekend. But we still have a lot of, we have a combination. There's easy aspects here throughout the week, and then there's some challenges. It looks like, in fact, today, tomorrow, and Wednesday seem to have, well, even Friday, really, that beginning part of Friday. So we can see here, just looking at the list, it doesn't look overly easy this next few days. Lots of oppositions now. The moon, as it came into Virgo, has started to oppose all of these planets. And that's what has to happen this week. The moon is in total opposition to everything. But it's also, again, a culmination to everything, too, that's been building up in the short term, the last couple weeks. So there's also a lot of inconjunctions, which means there's going to be some irritations and a lot of adjustments based on, things that are happening this next few days, really. So things can get a little bit annoying. There could be some instability this next few days and things like that. So with all that said, let's get started. Let's go through the chart day by day. I want to start here on Tuesday, March 31st. We see that the moon is currently at 24 degrees as I'm making this. So the first aspect for Tuesday is the moon in Virgo opposing Mars first thing in the morning. So right off the bat, first thing in the morning, it sets a tone of a little bit of agitation, a little bit of this need to get things done, get busy, but there's opposition in that. So there could be a few challenges for people in the morning. It could be a little bit critical too with, this Virgo vibe opposite Mars. There's still a need to deal with practical matters here with the moon at the end of Virgo. It's been here for the last couple of days already. But there's still a need to kind of, for the first part of today, to get organized, to be working on these Virgo areas of your life, of what's been purging, purifying, what's been restructuring and trying to reorganize and work on Virgo to make it better, to make improvements in different ways. So again, it can be a little bit more critical when we're looking at what's wrong, what needs to be better, what needs to be improved. But the vibes, the circumstances, they'll be changing as the day goes on. However, after the opposition with Mars, then we get the moon making an inconjunction to Chiron. Move this by the hour. So that right there is not, necessarily great, and having to adjust vulnerabilities, sensitivities, insecurities, things like that, or adjusting to what we need for the self versus work, service, even health could be getting in the way of something for some people there. So kind of an adjustment that needs to happen. That's going to be by late morning. And then the only easy aspect for the day, the moon will make a trine to Uranus as the moon is reaching the last degree of Virgo. This will be by tonight for people. So actually the moon will be in Virgo for most of the day until tonight when it changes signs. But it does make this nice trine over to Uranus. And that will be the last time from this position that we'll ever have this aspect in this earthly way. So again, moon in Virgo wants to make improvements, make things better. And with this opening to Uranus, people generally feel more comfortable with change, with doing something different, and with Uranus and Taurus, looking at money, resources, how you manage things, there's a great opportunity just to feel more comfortable and work with change in a practical, good way. But there's a sense of urgency by this evening tonight, and then a change of mood as that moon ingresses Libra now for the next 2.5 days. And right as the moon ingresses Libra, full moon vibes are on from this point, even though the full moon won't be perfect until Wednesday. So now that the moon is in Libra, it's being ruled by this strong Venus here in its own sign. So this is where now generally the world is going to try to find more compromise, more balance, trying to find peace and harmony. But that's difficult with all this Aries going on, which is only going to increase as we come into April more and more. But it is this opposition as well between the self and others. And we can look at this on a personal level, with our own lives and our own personal relationships. But this is also on the world level between nation states and what's going on right now. And perhaps even the war, this building up of the full moon this week could show a turning point for matters of the world that's been happening. So with the moon in Libra, there's always a need to try to be more balanced in life in different ways, because this is air. This is about doing emotions through intellect, not getting too wrapped up into the emotions and the sensitivities. These are signs that are more detached. Now, we still have Pisces and Cancer going on, so there's still strong emotions under the surface, behind the scenes, but this is what's out and open and visible. People are trying to be more intellectual about things once this moon comes into Libra. So being more objective, trying to be more fair with what's going on in different ways. And so, of course, the biggest way that this can play out is through relationships. There's going to be a stronger emotional need for people to try to improve relationships on different levels. And it's a good thing because, again, the ruler is in a strong position. But because Venus is the ruler of the next 2.5 days, including the full moon, and it's already within orb and building that square to Pluto, there's going to be forced changes and forced transformations that come along with this rebalancing between us and other people. So there could be some undercurrents building up this week. Power and control. We have to kind of find that better balance with power, and we have to get kind of in touch with power this week, especially within relationships. But there's always a chance with Venus Pluto that there's manipulation. There could be financial manipulation, there could be relationship manipulation, especially, I would say, when the moon is making the T-square there by Friday. So it doesn't mean it's going to be bad this entire week overall. This is positive. This is good. Venus is strong. And so this can make Taurus feel better, since Venus is in Taurus now. Taurus gets the love. Taurus gets the beauty, the attraction, the pleasure. But we all generally, and this is generally, of course, with Venus in Taurus, it is about the 5 senses of pleasure. It's more physical. And there's a stronger need for stability, keeping things stable. So that could also be part of the process, because now that this moon is in Libra, that's trying to find that compromise and that balance into a positive stability in different ways. People don't want, this shadow and this power dynamic, and we'll have to work with it no matter what. So even the moon here in Libra now, tonight, and the next couple of days, we'll put a strong emphasis on financial developments in the world in different ways and in relationships in different ways. But it's all about, generally it is about relationship at this point. So can you find a better balance? Can you improve relationships? Can you make changes? I would say that there's likely to be some relationships that have to go through a change in a difficult way. But I think that for the most part, there can be positive developments in relationships now moving forward. But it's not going to be necessarily easy. We'll still have opposition and challenges that we have to get through in that process of compromise and better harmony and balance with others. Moon coming into Libra also shows generally there's a need to create more beauty too. Libra deals with photography, art, beautiful things. So there's generally just a kind of a need. Plus, because it comes back to Venus in Taurus, which also enjoys, nice high quality things and pleasures. So I kind of like it, even though we see on this list that the next few days have a lot of difficult aspects. So we might not, again, we probably want a lot of the good stuff, but it is other people cooperative and things like that. It still might be a little bit of a challenge to get to where we want to be at first. So with that, the moon here in Libra, and now we have one more aspect for Tuesday night. That's the moon making an in conjunction to Venus. So it's like we have to adjust. adjust tonight to this new dynamic. So the mood, the feelings, yeah, it really is about money and relationship, in my opinion, with this new dynamic. But it's still not at its best here. So be patient. And I think it is going to be easier to be patient and help, make relationships better since we do have this strong Venus. All right, so with that, that's the last aspect for Tuesday. It's all about this end of Virgo and the beginning of Libra, and the beginning of the full moon energy. So then we move this forward and we'll get to Wednesday on April 1. And this is the big day, the big full moon event. The moon is building up to the full moon all day long. First aspect will be the moon opposing Neptune. So this is also a culmination to this new dynamic on the world stage with Neptune, Saturn, and the Aries ingress that we've been picking up on. So a lot of things on the world level about nation states and, trying to negotiate something. Perhaps I would imagine this is about Iran as well. Something with Iran and the war will probably be affected by this full moon. Again, there's trying to be negotiations. And we still have the circumstances on the full moon being ruled by the Venus, and the Venus is, again, within orb of Pluto. So again, it still deals with the power struggles as we're trying to find more harmony and balance in different relationships. But the moon opposite Neptune can still kind of show us like, wow, we're really starting to see more and more about what this new world reality is all about based on what's playing out in the world right now. But it can still add a little bit of fogginess or sensitivity there as this change is happening overnight hours into Wednesday. And then the moon is also opposite Saturn. So tomorrow kind of has a little bit more of a heavier vibe about it. Now, luckily, the moon makes a trine to Pluto as it's opposing Saturn. So this opposition, this heaviness, this weight, this pressure in relationship tomorrow, or just generally some pressure, whether it's about relationship or not, there's an outlet for it when we channel it into our social life, because Libra is about one-on-one connections. Aquarius is about the group and the community. That's where the power dynamic is with Pluto. So there's an opening to channel energy, relationship energy into group, friends, community, networking, but it's still serious. It's a really serious energy with the moon opposite Saturn, so probably serious developments in the world by tomorrow, but all week long into next week for sure with this full moon, no matter what. But there is an opening for easier transformation, easier power dynamics in this way, even though it's still a power play with Saturn here too, plus the Venus building up. Now we also get the moon in conjunct to the North Node of Destiny, having to make a lot of adjustments to our future based on what's playing out on Wednesday with other people. We also might have to adjust to what's more private behind the scenes here that's not as outward versus what is more visible and outward with this in conjunction. Okay. So we have that, and then we get the full moon, which will be by Wednesday night. Let me align the full moon perfectly. It's going to be 12 degrees. This is definitely perfectly aligned with me. One second. Looks like 12 degrees and 21 minutes is the exact full moon. So this full moon will be about 7 o'clock hour PM Arizona time and West Coast time. So again, it's going to be on late Wednesday night is the full moon. So check your chart. Do you have any personal planets at 12 degrees of Libra? If you do, then you're definitely wrapped up in what this full moon is talking about and this culmination and this need for better balance in life. But also check your chart. Where do you have Libra? It's different for everybody, but wherever you do have Libra, that's where there are relationships in your life. That's where there can be better diplomacy and compromise, art and beauty and things like that. But it also depends on your Venus, what your Venus has going on and aspects to your Venus and its strength. And then if you have anything in Libra. So it gets complicated, but just check your chart. Wherever you have Libra, that area of life, that's where there's a culmination. That's where there's illumination. That's where there's a need for trying to find compromise and better balance in your life. So generally it is about relationships, things in your life with others, relationships in general. Something about them is coming to a head, and there can be a turning point for certain relationships after this full moon, depending on what comes out, if it's positive or negative. Again, I think generally this is a more positive full moon in Libra because the ruler is dignified in its own sign. But let's say, Venus is about 3 degrees here. So it does have a 2-degree orb to Pluto. So this full moon still comes with power struggles under the surface. This moon shows that people are trying to be nicer about things, more diplomatic and graceful. But yet there's undercurrents that aren't as visible. There's power plays and manipulation that could be happening here. So don't get wrapped up into, trying to manipulate other people. A lot of times that can be unconscious for some people. They're not even aware that they're doing it. So if you're more aware, I think it can go a long way. And then also make sure other people aren't trying to manipulate you. But it's also probably about markets. There could be some market manipulation, and that's okay. That's the name of the game. The markets are always manipulated. It doesn't change anything for the average Joe. We still have to decide, is it up, down, or sideways? It doesn't matter who makes it happen. We just have to call it, But it's still a strong position for Venus. Now, there could still be some volatility in the markets this week, ups and downs with this dynamic. And that's why I'm saying I don't think Venus is totally ready to be at its best just yet until we get past that square. And then Venus makes that sextile with Jupiter, and that's what I'm really waiting for. But I would still think, even if somebody bought into the market right now and it went down a little bit more, and, you're still going to be fine because the market has taken this correction already. I don't think it's going to get too crazy based on this astrology here. But we could have still, some more challenge this week. But maybe not, with this strong Venus, and it is building forward, and it is building towards that Jupiter already. So that's the only kink in the program that I could foresee possibly happening this week with the markets. All right, so with that, again, full moon in Libra. Air and fire. So it's also about, this is an exalted sun, very strong here. So the strength is more on the self, and that's where we have to find that better balance, because with all this Aries, it is about us. It is, generally speaking, of course, wherever you have Aries, it depends on your birth chart, but this is generally about this very passionate, fiery, instinctive time for us and what we need to do for the self. But now we have to find that balance with the other people for the next few days and in this bigger context of April. So full moon between us and others. But the full moon, really, it doesn't have terrible aspects. It has an inconjunction to Mercury, an adjustment that we have to make to our thoughts, our perception, and communications with other people based on the full moon and what's coming out for Wednesday night into Thursday. But the main aspect of this full moon is a T-square to Jupiter. And so it kind of activates the sun square Jupiter from this point forward. The sun will be perfectly square Jupiter on Sunday, April 5. So it really sets the tone from this point forward to be over the top dynamics of what's going on. And this is big energy, moon square Jupiter, and then the sun square Jupiter. So the apex does come back to the foundation of home and family, feelings, needs, but more importantly, it's all about safety and security. So relationships have to make adjustments based on what people need on this foundational level to feel safe and secure in their life, in the world. And then on the world level with nation states, that's what it comes down to as well. And this apex of Cancer here with Jupiter sitting right there, Well, the United States is a Jupiter Cancer nation. So it's almost like, and this is like right where the sun is of the United States that Jupiter is on with this big T-square. So we're at this really big culmination moment, most likely this week, for what's going on with the war. We may not see it instantly here on Wednesday necessarily, but the developments of this full moon will be playing out over the next 2 weeks. So really, until we get to the new moon in Aries on April 17, we have a lot of results that we're going to be seeing from now through April 17 based on this full moon, with world dynamics changing. So it's really hard to be more fair and balanced sometimes when we have this square going on, because emotions are big, feelings are a little bit over the top. Now I still don't look at a square to Jupiter as a negative thing unless Jupiter is activating negative planets or something. But this isn't negative. This is just big needs. It could also be indulgent because, again, moon square Jupiter. With the full moon square Jupiter, it's like there is this push, there's this need for something for people. Again, it really comes down to the need for safety and security, but it could also be about comforts and pleasures. Now that Venus ruling this is in home sign of Taurus. So I would say there could be big developments, big relationship dynamics happening Wednesday night into Thursday. So just try not to let things get out of control or over the top or too much of something. Yeah. And again, it's like there's an instinctiveness with the Aries for people. Don't need to think about anything. Aries just does. But then that's in conflict with this Jupiter in Cancer, which is expanding people's need to play it safe, to be more inward, to be more cautious, to deal with that main issue of safety and security for the home and the family and your needs and all that kind of stuff, rather than going too crazy, taking too much of a risk or being too daring. And then the moon is like, let's find a better balance with all this. Let's be more compromising, more objective. Let's not get wrapped up into the emotions of it all. Let's detach and look at this objectively. So we have this pull in all these different directions that we're trying to sort out. But it's still a culmination point that's offering illumination and awareness and consciousness about things in life, and especially wherever you have Libra in your chart. That's where there's illumination for you to see where you stand with that side of your chart. What is that area for you? Let me know in the comments what Libra is for you personally. What house is it? And how strong is your Venus? All right, so that's where the full moon is. And then, the moon is in conjunct to Mercury for the last aspect. So there is a lot of adjustments and irritations that can come about from this full moon. But if it's not about relationship that you have to find better balance with, or a turning point in some major relationship, then it's just about balance in general. Where do you need to find better balance in your life? What do you need to do? What do you need to change? Full moons are about things endings or beginning. Usually more on an ending level, a turning point to start something new about that area. And roughly 6 months ago, there was a Libra new moon here. And now, developments of the past 6 months in your life with negotiations, relationship energy, people, or wherever you have it, now those developments have come to a head. Now, even though Saturn is wrapped up in this, I think that the Tuesday, today, as I'm making this report, is more of the Saturn stuff tonight, late tonight into tomorrow morning. But Saturn is still part of this, I suppose, too. So it's still a part of this more serious dynamic, the serious development in the world with this new Saturn transit. And Saturn is challenging Libra for the next 2.5 days. Remember, Saturn is opposing Libra now for 2.5 years, 3 years almost. Last time was the late 90s. So it is karmic. It is a karmic full moon. It is a serious full moon with relationships. It is serious about war, negotiations, and things like that. And I think that there is a strong potential of a negotiation of some type, a deal of some type, maybe for Iran or other situations. If you have any personal deals that you have to make and stuff, I think that there's a possibility that you could see good results, especially because right after the full moon, Mercury is building up that trine again with Jupiter, which could offer good news too, and more hope and inspiration. But there's still a lot of, it still feels a little bit challenging by tomorrow night. So with that, let's move this forward. I'm going to put it back on the hour. And moon is now going to be waning through Libra for Thursday on April 2nd. And this is the day where we have a lot of aspects in different ways. The moon makes that exact square to Jupiter as the overnight hours happen from the full moon into Thursday morning. Again, things are over the top, big energy, big mood, big needs. It's even bigger than just a normal moon square Jupiter because this is a full moon at its max strength, So again, try to like hold back a little bit from too much of things. And also it can be instinctive too because of the Aries component. So just try not to be jumping head first into anything this week. Try to be more intellectual and objective about it. Try to think about it a little more. But again, usually Aries is very instinctive and just takes action when there's a download, an inspiration or something. But we only have 3 aspects on Thursday, and they're all difficult with that moon square Jupiter. And then the moon is in conjunct to Mars as the day goes on. That can be irritating. That can, again, having to adjust between 2 different areas. We're trying to be compromising, more fair, more balanced, keeping things nicer. But then there's this energy behind the scenes that's pulling people into their own world, or a little more of aggressiveness that we have to adjust to there. And then the last aspect is the moon opposing Chiron. So it doesn't actually look all that great for Thursday. Thursday could have some issues. This could also be even Earth events with too much energy. With this T-square to Jupiter, things are over the top energetically. And so even the Earth could be reacting to, with Earth events or something this week based on these Jupiter aspects. But yeah, it just doesn't look all that great, actually. So it doesn't have to be terrible for every single person, but just know, that the next few days has a lot of irritations and agitations, it feels like. Wait, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm sorry. Thursday has the least aspects. It was Friday that has all the big aspects. I misspoke there. Got confused. So yeah, this is Thursday, April 2nd, that has these difficulties. And then we do get to Friday on April 3. And this is where the moon changes signs and ingresses Scorpio. So right before the moon changes signs, it makes an inconjunction to Uranus, again, adjusting, adapting to something different, instability, distractions. And then then Mercury is making that exact trine to Jupiter early morning hours on Friday. So again, this is the third and final trine aspect that we've had to this placement, which shows an opening that we've been processing with the Mercury retrograde in the background about, again, home, family, safety, security needs. What is it that you need personally that this Mercury retrograde has been reflecting on, reviewing, and kind of activating your destiny for what is ahead behind the scenes. So now just Jupiter has been a part of that process. So there is something that supports us here. We do have an opening to have again, inspiration, feeling more hopeful, inspired by something, even supported by something. Maybe there could be some good news for some people with this. I would say if you're most likely to be wrapped up in this good news, if you do have a planet about 15 to 16 degrees of Cancer and 15 to 16 of Pisces with this in your own chart. If you have this exact trine in your own chart with different planets, then you're really wrapped up into this. But for everybody too, if you have 15, 16 Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, even Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn, I think you're more in alignment with this. But there's possibilities for different people in different scenarios to be, aligned with the possibility of something positive coming out for you, that the full moon was kind of like a culmination that led to this good news. Or it could, if it doesn't literally result in, communications or news from somebody that's positive, then it can be your own process of how you've been thinking about things, how you've been thinking about your future, again, home, and your needs and your feelings for things. And so it just feels like people do have something hopeful that's in alignment based on that development. I would also use this to your advantage if you need to do paperwork. Yes, I usually don't like to do those kind of things with mercurial things with Mercury and Pisces, but this Mercury and Pisces is getting help from an exalted Jupiter. So in this case, you could use this, by, again, if you have to do paperwork, if you have to apply for something, if you need to ask for something, any form of communication that you need to do, I would say try to use it on late Thursday into Friday early morning, if it aligns with your time and if it's practical for you, or if you even need to try to work with this. But it can be good in that way. Or make travel plans, or just kind of anything mercurial in that way. It still doesn't mean that travel and transportation is good right now, because Mercury is still in a difficult position overall. All right, so that's the aspect, and then the moon changes signs. Moon ingressing Scorpio changes the overall mood for the next 2.5 days. Now we're back in water again. Now we have a lot of water. So we've been having way more water than we usually do. But the moon in Scorpio, it's not comfortable. It's not always easy. It deals with deeper emotions. It deals with people trying to control their feelings, their emotions. The moon in Scorpio generally doesn't like to be exposed. It has more of a privacy about it. But it's also about intimacy. But this is not going to be an easy moment for intimacy for people. If there's a strong desire where you do want, good, deep connection and an intimate connection, I think that it's possible. I think things can improve in relationships because of Venus here. But the issue is the Pluto. Again, the moon is building up to this big T-square with Venus and Pluto. So there's going to be this dynamic here where we may not be as satisfied or comfortable in a relationship dynamic by Friday. Emotions are deeper, more intense, more passionate, more controlled, but also, again, what I talked about with manipulation with Venus square Pluto. Well, manipulation is even more likely as the moon is also in this configuration with Scorpio here. So that's my advice. Don't get wrapped up into power plays and manipulations. It can also intensify, though, too. Intensify desires and passions and needs for people. Because, again, we're still in over-the-top energy with the sun building up the square to Jupiter all week long. Things are over the top, big needs with the full moon T-square. So it can also go that way, too. Spending too much money, strong desire, strong needs that are out of balance. A stronger need for intimacy, but there's opposition to it as well. And if you think about it, the moon is as far away from Venus as it can get. So it's not like this is better for money and resources, even though the markets might be responding to this dynamic as well on Friday. But it's still a power play on Friday in some way. There's more intensity within relationship and money. So if you do have to make any big purchase on Friday or deal with financial matters on Friday, just be aware of this aspect, that there's undercurrents, there's shadow that's wrapped up into this dynamic for people. And that's what it's all about, shadow and these undercurrents within relationships and money. And there definitely could be some manipulation happening financially with this on Friday. But again, it doesn't matter. We just have to still choose which way it's going, no matter who makes it go that way. All right. And, it is a golden opportunity. I tell you guys this all the time. Every time we have these major pullbacks in the market and corrections, those are always the golden opportunities because it always goes back up. It always does. Every single time there's a pullback, it always goes back up in the long run. So think about it. It was only a year ago that we had that major pullback. So if you're willing to invest 6 months to a year out, you have great opportunities, but you have to make that decision for yourself. I can't tell people what to do. I can only kind of show you the general theme of these energies that I've been explaining. So personally, what I'm doing is I'm waiting for this Venus to get past that. And then I would say by next week, I'm more willing to invest for something for the next year after that. Even if there's still more downside, it doesn't matter because it'll eventually turn around and go back up. All right, so with that, Moon in Scorpio now being ruled by Mars. So it comes back to this Mars at the end of Pisces. Mars will still be here for the rest of the week, but it is approaching its strongest position in the coming next week. So still puts a lot of energy in a more private, behind-the-scenes way now for the next 2.5 days. And there's definitely probably some big financial thing going on here on Friday in the world. Again, the markets could be responding, but there could also be like news or some development that causes some intensity in banks or money or something here like that on Friday, I would imagine. Okay, so then the moon is in conjunct to Neptune, adjusting to what's outward and visible in this new world dynamic versus what's private and inward. But all day long, Friday, the main energy is this moon building up to this T-square with Pluto and Venus, exact at 5 degrees. So if you do have a planet at 5 degrees of one of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, then you're under a once-in-a-lifetime Pluto transit this year, and it's being activated right now on Friday by this T-square. So the moon square Pluto, again, it shows forced changes, forced transformations, power plays, undercurrents, manipulation, and there's a culmination happening at the same time with Venus. Money and resources are culminating and at a turning point for some reason based on Friday. Friday could also be difficult in negotiation, in relationship, based on the full moon, of what that process is trying to lead to. Or, even though it's a T-square, there's always a chance that this could force some negotiation, force some deal, whether, because it's a power play, really. So I would probably bet it has something to say about the markets and something separately about Iran. There could be other things too that this is showing in those kind of ways that I explained. Okay, so there's that big T-square for Friday afternoon, Friday evening, depending on where you live. If you're in Europe, this is late on Friday or early morning into the Saturday early hours. So if you are like even, in a relationship with somebody or engaged in activity that night, Friday evening, it's really going to be past it once we get to Friday night, late on Friday night. So this is more like Friday afternoon, Friday evening. But even if you're like with somebody, just know that there could also be a trigger that gets heated up or something, from this dynamic. All right, so that's what I'm seeing with that. And then the moon will also be in conjunct to Jupiter as the night goes on, having to adjust to the inner, not in conjunct to Jupiter, in conjunct to Saturn as the Friday night goes on there. So having to adjust to the heavy vibe. Again, Friday night probably isn't the best social night. In fact, if you are out on Friday afternoon, evening, and night, I would be extra cautious. This could also be a challenge socially. There could be even a difficult event. Sometimes the moon in Scorpio shows issues of death and other taboos that we don't like to talk about. Venus square Pluto, I would say in overall, in this way, it feels more like on a world level and financial level, but it could also be violence or other extreme events in groups, community, around Friday or Friday evening, Friday night. It can also, on a different note, Venus square Pluto can also, I think I mentioned it maybe, it can intensify people's desires and their needs to be a little more extreme. So be careful of extremism within relationship and pleasure and money. It can be like a moth to the flame kind of vibe too. But then the moon aligns with the nodes of fate for late Friday night. So destiny is at play super late on Friday into Saturday morning. And then we move forward and we get to Saturday on April 4. The moon is halfway through Scorpio. And there's only a few aspects here, including the moon in conjunct to the sun. So this is where the lights are on two different pages. They don't help each other out. They don't see each other. They don't work with each other. It's like we're pulled into the areas of the self and instinct and action and passion. And yet there's more of a pull into a deeper, more hidden area versus this highly visible side of the chart, the outward versus the inward. And then power, control dynamics, adjusting to our inner feelings and needs, to our outer focus, things like that. But both of these signs are ruled by Mars, so Mars is still in charge Saturday morning. Well, all day on Saturday, Mars is the ruler of the moon. So it still comes back to a lot of behind-the-scenes energy. I also say that this Mars transit through Pisces, it just hasn't been the best. Now, I think this isn't based on any kind of news. What I say isn't based on what the media says. I base my stuff on astrology. So even though we're not necessarily seeing reports of failure or anything, I don't think that there's failure about military operations, but we just don't have the clarity. This Pisces shows that even the military doesn't have the clarity that they would like. There's just something that isn't as easy, or something that's tripping us up in the background. And so once that Mars leaves Pisces and gets to Aries, the war is going to be a whole different thing if it doesn't get settled very soon here. But anyway, that's a side note. So moon in conjunct to sun, but then the moon does have two good aspects for Saturday. As the day goes on, moon trine Jupiter and moon trine Mercury. So the moon actually forms a grand trine on Saturday to both that Mercury and Jupiter, connecting them both again. And that information, those thoughts, the perceptions, our need for safety and security and comfort. But this is a water grand trine. So again, it's behind the scenes, it's inward, it's intuitive, it's sensitive and emotional, but it's flowing. Things are flowing very strongly there for Saturday. All right, and then moving this forward, moon is still in Scorpio for Saturday night. And there is no major aspects for late Saturday night. The moon is just coming off of that grand trine, but it is still in a deep position in Scorpio for late on Saturday night. Until we get to Sunday on April 5. The moon is at the end of Scorpio for the early morning hours, making an in conjunction to Chiron. So a little bit of sensitivity that has to be adjusted there, insecurities, vulnerability. But the moon will be changing signs, so there's going to be a big energetic change as the day goes on. But the first part of the day, the moon will be in Scorpio, making a trine to Mars. So there's a good action alignment first thing on Sunday morning. And then we see that one second here. We see that the moon is also opposite Uranus as it's reaching this last critical degree of Taurus. So there could also be like a sense of urgency, a sense of something changing for Sunday, late morning into the afternoon hours, which does lead to this mood change as the moon ingresses Sagittarius as the day goes on. But also, this is the day where the sun is square Jupiter all day on Sunday. And it's exact at 16 degrees. So do you have 16 degrees of one of the cardinals in your chart? 16 Aries, 16 Cancer, 16 Libra, 16 Capricorn, give or take a few degrees if you want, but it's exact at 16. That's the strongest influence. So you're wrapped up in a Jupiter transit for a final time if you do have that degree in your chart and the sun is totally activating it. So again, we have two exalted positions squaring each other. So they're very strong in their own right, respectively here. So that helps. That counterbalances a little bit, but it's still big energy. Too much of a good thing, overindulgence. Ego is very, very strong here. The sun is exalted. It's a very strong position, but it's being squared by Jupiter, which sometimes can indicate a little bit of an ego issue, a pride issue, things like that. But I would say just overall, the energy is over the top. It's too much. Something big could be happening. So kind of moderate yourself a little bit, check yourself, because again, this can be instinctive too. Just jumping into something quickly. Plus, it's happening as the moon is changing signs as well into Sagittarius, which is also fire, increasing passion, instinct, adventure, the need for more outward energy. And this is also a clash based on, Aries versus Cancer. That's a square dynamic that we all have, we all live with. Even if we don't have planets in those signs, we have those signs in our chart. Aries, again, is about taking action, initiating something, being brave and courageous and instinctive and pioneering something. It's just like a direct download to do something. But then Cancer says, no, we got to play it safe. We have to think about our safety, our security issues, our home, our family, our needs, our comfort. We don't want to threaten that in some way. So it's like a tension to do something, take big action on something, but then there could be resistance too at the same time, or the opposite polarity where people are just going over the top with things on Sunday. And again, this could be energetically big energy all week long, that could affect Earth events too. I'm not saying it has to necessarily be on Sunday. It could, but it could be any day of this week. Some sort of over-the-top major Earth event is possible. I don't know that it necessarily will happen. It's definitely possible, but I mean, there's really not a ton of major things happening aspect-wise this week, but the things that are happening are pretty powerful, so we'll see. But anyway, the moon comes into Sagittarius. It is a mood change for Sunday evening, Sunday night. Big mood, big feelings. Now that moon has the mutual reception to Jupiter again. So again, we have this connection between what's above and beyond, faith, belief, versus home, family, safety, security, and all that. As I say, every month with the moon in Sagittarius, it can go either way. People's mood wants to be usually happier, more joyful, joke around, have a good time. Don't get too wrapped up in serious energy here with the moon in Sag. The moon will be in harmony now with Saturn. You see, Saturn was kind of a bummer for Sagittarius the last 2.5 years. Sag wasn't at its funniest moment there for a while, but now Sagittarius can be funny again, I think, overall. And it won't have that square from Saturn anymore. Now Saturn supports Sagittarius for the next 2.5 years, and we're picking up on that with the moon trine Neptune and Saturn here right as it comes in. So we're in alignment with this new world development, but the moon in Sag is also about philosophy, the bigger picture, seeking answers, seeking truth and understanding of things, deals with travel, and just, again, more adventurous and more outward. And then we get to Monday, on April 6th, the moon in Sagittarius makes that connection to these new world developments, including the sextile to Pluto, the trine to Saturn. So this is another activation of that power dynamic between Saturn and Pluto that shows that we've been able to make changes to systems and structures and rules without total destruction. And we have another opportunity to look at that dynamic and work with it again by Monday. Now this is early morning hours, and we're also in better harmony with responsibility and commitment and maturity, even though it's Sagittarius. Not to say that Sag isn't mature, but it's definitely not a Saturn energy. So we're working with the Saturn energy well with this. Now this is the day where Venus is aligned with the nodes of fate. So this is Monday of next week. This is where now I feel Venus is in a much better position. Resources, markets, anything financial is connected to fate and destiny for the long-term future by next week on Monday. And again, Venus has gotten past that square, and now it's building up the sextile with Jupiter. So this is where I'm looking at. I would probably guess at this point that April will be the bottom of this pullback. But I'll make any adjustments to that prediction as time goes on if I need to. But looking at this, I'm liking Venus by next week. So relationships and money are in a fateful destined alignment by Monday. And then the moon is also sextile that Pluto, that trine that Saturn. But then the moon is also T-squared the nodes of fate. So Monday is a really fateful day on different levels with different things happening. Circumstances are at a fateful crossroads. Anything happening will affect the future. We might have to make a decision about something. There's tension here that we have to work with. So even though Venus is in a good spot, there's a lot of tension in the background despite that, including we still have the Sun-Jupiter square going on even into Monday. So a fateful day, and then the last aspect is the moon and Venus in conjunct. So we're having to adjust. And the moon is still really far away from Venus. So give this time for things to improve with the Venus dynamic. All right, so that's what I have for you guys this week. Let me take a look at my video here. All right, about an hour long. Appreciate you watching. Hit that thumbs up for me if you like my video and you want more. And I appreciate you watching. I hope you have a great week ahead. Take good care.